It's March 21st and I'm in Niagara County in a field of winter canola. And I made a video in this field last fall, and so I wanted to follow up. This is a field that's seeded on 7.5-inch rows. It was seeded relatively early, and we had long fall with good growing conditions into late November. And this field had good fertility and some sludge applied, and so we had huge growth, bigger than I'd ever seen before. And as you can see now, we have a lot of brown material in the field, and so all of those leaves just rot off through the winter. They can't maintain this material through the winter months, and so we were expecting to see this. And so you can't scout from the road, you do have to come into the field and have a look at what's happening. So here's an example of a plant that was nice and big in the fall, nice huge crown on it, wider than my thumb. It actually has a little side shoot as well. And although the bigger leaves rotted off, it's still very green, very healthy. Lots of growing points on this little side shoot and on the main plant. And so this plant will have lots of branches and lots of buds on it before it even starts to flower. And so this is awesome. This is what we were hoping to see. Unfortunately, some of our fears did come true. So the plants were a little elongated in the fall because they were competing with each other and trying to grow taller than their neighbors. And so we had a lot of top growth and elongated plants. So the growing point was here, about 5 inches from the soil surface. And that is what made me nervous because it's exposed through the winter and it's just, too big and succulent. And so as I feared, some of these main growing points or plants are rotten and didn't survive the winter. Quite a few dead plants in this field, unfortunately. And we also have something else going on. So here's a plant, kind of same idea, 5 or 6 inches tall, and that main growing point is dead. But there are a lot of these in the field. The plant is actually still alive. And so it has 5 or 6 growing points that are already starting to grow on the sides of this elongated stem. So the plant is alive. It'll put up stems from these growing points, maybe, 4 or 5 or 6. But they're unlikely to branch. I've seen this before. They usually don't branch. They just have one bud cluster at the top. So you'll have 5 of those stems, and it'll set pods, but it won't be a big yielder. And there's quite a few of those in this field. Here's a plant from the edge of the field where there was no sludge applied. I showed some of these plants in the fall as well. They're much more stout. The growing point is, basically at the soil surface. And so this is much more desirable. Basically no winter kill in that part of the field where there was no sludge applied. And again, a nice big plant, big root, and tons of growing points on this plant. And it is a fairly long root, and maybe in that part of the field it was had to go looking for nutrients a little deeper. And that's maybe why, it put more energy into root growth than into top growth. This field was seeded on 7.5-inch rows, so I used a hula hoop to do stand counts in 10 or 11 parts of the field. And certainly there are areas of the field where we had a lot more top growth in the fall, and that resulted in more dead plants. And so we had anywhere from 1.1 to 3.75 plants per square foot. And so the average I got was 1.9 plants per square foot. And so in my opinion, we should keep this field because a lot of these plants are huge and vigorous, and they're going to be massive yielders. And so I've underestimated canola plenty of times, and I'm not going to do that this time. I think this is a field that could do well, even though it's not an ideal scenario and maybe shouldn't have been planted as early, or maybe that sludge encouraged very vigorous growth, especially with the weather we had in the fall, which of course we can't predict. It might be a little difficult at harvest time to cut through those plants that have big stalks, and plants will have a lot of branches, and so that might introduce some variability. The branches and flowers that open first will have mature seeds in them first, and branches that come later will mature a little bit later. So there could be some variability in this field, which might make it difficult to time fungicide applications and, like I said, harvest time. But really looking forward to following up on this field again.